everyone to another episode of vBrownBag. Tonight's episode is a very special episode. What's in the bag? Automating vBrownBag with AWS Serverless. We have a back-end process that Damian Carlson has been working on diligently, tirelessly, fearlessly.
Fearlessly, yes.
Without rest, blood, sweat, and tears. And tonight, he is going to show it to all of us. Roger and I actually haven't seen this. Well, he's been talking about it. He's been complaining about it for a long time. But we have not seen. Oh, and here's Charlotte too. Amazing. We have. Has Damian cursed yet? I guess Conrad knows you.
Yes. Conrad and I are friends. What's up, dude?
And so tonight we are going to talk about the process by which vBrownBag using AWS Serverless does something a process we call the Meatgrinder, where it takes in the videos, it does the different things, it spits out stuff on the other end, and we have so many questions. The first question though is, Damian, how are you doing tonight? As our presenter this evening, what you been up to?
Oh man, I have been very busy. I actually spent a lot of time today closing a bunch of issues that I opened against my own repo for the Meatgrinder, and then writing a bunch of additional documentation. So should I get hit by the proverbial bus, Chris, I trust that you'll be able to build all the parts of Meatgrinder as needed. So
hopefully this episode is actually going to walk me through that, so that
yes.
That's another reason why I'm excited for this.
Yes, this is actually vBrownBag training, for those of y'all that don't know. Offline, we did the HR stuff. So we learned about implicit bias. We learned that you can't curse on webinars, so all sorts of
that weird
things.
Musical, don't touch me here, I won't touch you there. That was a sexual harassment training. It was super awkward this year.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So yeah,
musical.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where this is going, Chris. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been very busy coding and learning and really having a good time. How about you?
I have, so this is my first year. This is the first year that I've been a DA in the swing and the thick of like conference season. So I'm currently in the middle of conference season. So next week I'm going to be in Virginia. The week after I'm going to be in Japan. The week after that is a break. Then I'm going to have HashiConf in Boston. Then after that is KubeCon. Then Tech Exchange back in Vegas, and then AWS reInvent. So there's a couple of gaps in the vBrownBag schedule that I am hoping the three of you can book and fill, because I will be flying everywhere. Yeah, it's bananas, but I'm actually super enjoying it. This is the thing that I really wanted to do as a DA, was do the conferences, do the talk tracks and stuff like that. So I've got a bunch of talks lined up, and I've actually got one tomorrow. We're doing a webinar in preparation for HashiConf, the Terraform Associate, how to study for the Terraform Associate certification. So I'm doing a big webinar tomorrow for HashiCorp for that, and we're going to be giving away a bunch of certificate vouchers. So lots of camera time.
Yeah, that's actually I signed up for that HashiCorp Terraform webinar.
Rihanna's on.
Yeah. Hi,
hey, Rihanna.
So yeah, I signed up for that, folks. If you're interested in it, I know that it's been reposted on the vBrownBag Twitter. I know that Chris has posted on LinkedIn and on Twitter. You can attend as an individual, even though HashiCorp tries to be tricky and they ask for your business email. They actually don't check if it's a Gmail or not, because I used my own personal one. And yeah, I'm looking forward to attending that, Chris.
You can totally squeak by. And if you have questions, I can answer those questions for you outside of. you can hit me up.
Yeah.
I'll put the link in.
Yeah. Are you going to be talking about HashiCube during your training?
So I specifically asked if I could, and they said that we wanted to keep it to first party stuff. Right. I am going to mention it. I am going to say that there's a bunch of cool things out there that you can play with, and I'm going to bring it up, and then I'm going to tell them what they can Google for. But I can't put a QR code or a link up for it or something like that.
Makes perfect sense. I get it.
When I'm talking about Rion's passion project, I will be very effusive about how amazing it is.
Yeah. So let's continue with these introductions, and I'm going to somewhat clumsily toss to Shala by asking about a joint project that she and you have going right now, Chris. Don't you all have a thing coming up for that?
Hey, how's my mic now?
No, it's great. We can hear you.
There you go. You are live.
Clearly I was having a little bit of technical issues. Chrome did not want to pick up my Yeti, but I figured it out. So yes, we have our Not So Soft Skills show, which is where me and Chris go on and talk about the things we want to talk about related to tech. Like Monday, we're going to get into the conversation of how we found mentors throughout our career and, just kind of help with people who we both get asked a lot, either A, to be someone's mentor, or how did you go about finding mentors? So we're finally going to have that conversation live on Twitch Friday.
Awesome.
How to be a mentor, how to find a mentor, how to vet a mentor, and how to approach somebody if you see somebody out in the wild that you want to, either shepherd or be shepherded by.
Yep.
Yeah. I actually did a bit of mentoring at my previous employer, and it took me a long time to ever think of myself as, good enough or knowledgeable enough to do that, right? It might have been a bit of the imposter syndrome, but I mean, the reality is there are a lot of folks that haven't been working in IT for the same amount of time that most of us on this call have, right? And they would love to learn, right? And so there's always an opportunity to pass knowledge around and even learn from the people too. It's not just a one-way thing. Speaking of not just a one-way thing, let's segue to how is Roger doing? How are you, sir?
Your segues are terrible tonight.
They're terrible. They're terrible.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm doing good. I've been here in a while, so it's great to see all of you, first of all. And then second, I'm actually looking forward to hearing your presentation. But I haven't been really up to anything, just doing a lot of security work and trying to keep up with all the latest trends when it comes to AI and cybersecurity. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks.
Cool.
Nice. Were you at Black Hat, or are you going to RSA or anything like that?
No, but I was offered the opportunity to go to reInvent, and I actually declined.
Roger Bartholomew White.
Why? I'm going.
I can't believe that you would tell people my middle name out in public. We've talked about this, man.
Bartholomew, that is a respectable middle name.
I'm pretty sure that's an HR violation somewhere.
We got to add it in next year's training.
Wait, Shala and I are going to go.
Oh,
yeah. Yes.
We're having a pre-invent dinner party for the vBrownBag team on Sunday.
Well, apparently I did not get the memo, but I will.
Well, I'm telling you now.
They only sent the notice out today, so I might be able to see if I can stay there.
Yeah, fix that. Get your butt out there.
Yes.
We'll talk. Yeah.
I'm not going to pressure Damian because he currently, money status. So I'm not going to force him. But you can have your company pay for
it. Yes.
That's why I'm going.
Right?
I wasn't going to be there either.
So we're all admitting if it wasn't being paid for by somebody else, we would all not be going.
Oh, 100%.
Excuse me. Yeah, have you seen that ticket price?
Yeah. It's easily what, like $3,000 to $5,000 all in for hotel and ticket.
Hotel ticket, yeah. And if you're not getting fed dinners,
right?
Get it? Yeah. No, it's easily way too much money.
Yeah.
Because that's right. Because I was gonna say that's easily a package deal in Mexico with food.
Yeah.
That's an inclusive resort with dolphin swimming and pina coladas.
Yes.
Not stuck in a smoky casino. And you know what? We should actually talk about what the audience is here to listen about. Damian's construction.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna have to do a lot of cutting and posts. So thanks everyone, but I do enjoy the conversation.
You know what we should do? We should actually, I'll show you Premiere Pro and we'll cut together for this one. And I'll show you like the magic deliciousness of the word editor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the Meatgrinder. So for a little bit of background, I imagine that folks that have been around the vBrownBag for a while are familiar with some of the things that we've done in the past with specifically called the Tech Talks, right? This was something that we did for a lot of years at a lot of different conferences where we showed up with a camera and a bunch of computers and we had a stage in a community space and we went through multiple days of kind of 15-minute TED Talks that were put on by the attendees of that conference, right? And so Alistair Cook at Demitas NZ, he built this thing that he called the Meatgrinder, right? It was, you know, it was a meat grinder, it was a yak shaver, it's how the sausage is made, blah blah blah. That's, you know, that's kind of where that came from. And the point of that script was he could record a video, he could save that video off into a folder. The script would see it in the folder, it would process it, it would upload it to YouTube, it would put it over on a website, it would put it over here and over there, right? It was just all PowerShell, all locally, and just kind of ran in the background and did a bunch of logging. And then he had actually extended that same thing to the Meatgrinder running on AWS. I believe it actually ran on an EC2 VM. And over time, it got to the point of where, well, first of all, it had broken, and second, it was just too expensive to maintain. And so I had part
of it was on-prem, and part of it was like this. It was this Frankenstein construction that only Al knew about.
Yes, yeah, it was a lot, and now it's a Frankenstein construction that only I know about, which is why we're here. So
for our HR training.
Yes. And so I had time available to me earlier this year. I wanted to get re-involved with the vBrownBag. I asked how I could help. And one of the things that Chris and Al agreed upon me being able to help with was getting this automation running again, right? So after we record this video and after this video is manually edited, you know, this automation part would actually do the rest of it, post it all to YouTube, post it to WordPress, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see, can you, like, what if I do this? Yay. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm still not very familiar with how StreamYard works. So this is a very rough diagram of how the Meatgrinder works. And this is something that I architected over time. It didn't all come together at once. There are a few. Yes, Shala says, don't forget to hit the follow button and the notification bell for more Tech Talk goodness. So
she's so much better at that than we are.
Yeah, she's wonderful. So when we think about the information that we deal with, right? We have an MP4, we usually have a metadata file, we usually have thumbnails. And so one of the first problems that I was trying to solve is, how do I, from a function perspective, how do I know when all the things are on S3? And that led me down an entire like rabbit hole of different AWS services and different ways that you can actually create that event that you're watching to begin firing off that function. What I landed on was actually just an event bridge rule that would kick off a step functions workflow based on a certain file type that goes to S3. So up here in the top left, you see the S3 working bucket. That once the metadata file, which is a CSV file, hits that S3 bucket, Event Bridge sees that, and then it tells step functions, hey, here's a CSV, and then step functions acts as the orchestrator that decides how multiple Lambda functions actually operate to perform the rest of this automation. And it ultimately ends up with a YouTube video being posted on our channel, the same stuff being put on vBrownBag.com, and then the RSS feed updated for folks who are following the show through RSS feed, which is an XML file. So, you know, we need to put this XML file somewhere else and actually host that video on our public S3 bucket. And so that's kind of the in a nutshell, what the Meatgrinder does within the new AWS serverless architecture that I've built to solve this problem. Any questions?
None for me, but it's because I've been watching you rant about this for weeks and months now. I have questions about the nuts and bolts, but I understand the topological infrastructure.
Okay.
Shala and Roger haven't been as close to it as you and I have. Did y'all have anything?
So you're looking to really automate the whole process, essentially. Is that what this essentially is going to do?
Yes, yeah. So once a video has been edited, it gets put into an S3 bucket, and then the function does the rest of it. It's just a fully automated process that can scale. So you can throw as many videos at it as you'd like, and it can scale and just do all the processing as it goes.
No, it's not going to do anything like the adding the header or the footer at the end of videos.
It doesn't do any editing of the source MP4. It does, when it's posting the video to YouTube, it does set the thumbnail and set the playlist that is going on to YouTube, but it's not editing the video itself.
Okay.
And it doesn't. It's not. The API doesn't allow you to put in that CTA at the end of the video, like that little clicker for more playlists. I don't think the API allows you to do that.
No, that was yeah. You can't do any like after video things. So yep. Yes.
Just so you know,
Conrad is asking. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Roger.
Trick question, by the way, Damian. You handled it very well. Good job.
Thank you. So I see Conrad's question here. Is it a series of functions or one monolithic function? All of the above, actually. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to take this down and then add this back and then go over to here. Can you all see this okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna hide our talking heads so that we see it a little bit better like that. There we go.
Okay. So this is AWS step function, right? And step function is an orchestrator of sorts. And so what I've done is I've actually visually built this out. There's a whole bunch of different states and things like that you can add to this kind of drawing area here in the middle, and then you can kind of define how each state works. So a file gets put on S3, event bridge says, hey, Meatgrinder orchestration workflow, you should start now. And it starts with some housekeeping, and it actually sets the function configuration of the Lambda I'm calling just to a standard one, because I end up kind of ballooning the Lambda config as it goes through this workflow. And I want to make sure that I'm starting at the smaller configuration. And so it just sets a config, it goes into this where it actually invokes the Lambda function, and it says, okay, Meatgrinder function over in Lambda, check for an MP4 and an S3. And it does this. Oh, sorry. So it'll just call Meatgrinder, and Meatgrinder itself, like the first thing that it does is just it goes and it checks. I believe. No, I'm wrong. Anyways, I was looking to see if there was a configuration for this step, and I don't have it. So it goes and it calls Meatgrinder, which then responds with the choice state. So it kicks JSON back, and I actually have these rules set up to say, yes, the MP4 is on the S3. No, it's not. And I have a loop here that actually loops through every 20 minutes to see if the MP4 has made it to S3. And this is how I solved that problem of needing to have multiple things in place before I could actually start doing the work. Because I don't always know if Chris is going to upload the MP4 first or the CSV file, that metadata file first. And I want to make sure that everything is in place before we move farther down. And so in this wait state, I define what actually happens based on the output that Meatgrinder returns. So Meatgrinder actually returns JSON back that step functions then interprets and then decides what to do next with. And this is what I mean, Conrad, when I say that it's both a series of functions and a monolithic function, because one function does a lot of the work, and it basically takes input in the form of JSON that it passes to itself in a prior step, and it does different things depending on what that input is. And so once we've got the MP4 and the CSV and everything all in one place, this is where I actually balloon out that Lambda, because I need to have that MP4 literally on that Lambda's instance, like on its storage. And we don't always know how much storage there is that's available or that's going to be needed for that MP4. And so I just say, give me the max. Give me the maximum number of megabytes available on this Lambda. So give me 10 gigs in storage, give me the max memory, give me whatever I need just to upload this to YouTube. And I take a little wait here because Amazon Web Services runs hella fast. And I learned that you can increase a function configuration and then invoke it again. And it hasn't always finished with that function config before it re-invokes itself. And so actually I had to put a little thing in here just to slow AWS's roll a bit. So Conrad said that he's previously used Lambda to call other Lambda as opposed to having step functions understanding the results. So yeah, that was a design decision that I had to make as well. Like, do I want to put all of the intelligence into the function, or do I want to have an orchestrator that kind of understands state? And I solved that problem by creating a state in JSON that step functions decides what to do with, and then the function itself reacts accordingly. And so once we actually have that bigger Lambda configuration in place, then it begins the upload to YouTube, and then it shrinks back down again. And then because the YouTube API does not have a way of notifying you when it's done with its internal processing, I just do a 2-hour wait here. And that was an arbitrary number. Well, it was a scientifically wild ass guess number, based on a long 1.5 hours of vBrownBag video that was recorded in high definition. It took about 2 hours for YouTube to process it. So it just waits for YouTube to process it, because what we need to do after that is actually download that again, because we want that smaller post YouTube video to put on our public S3 bucket for our RSS folks. Is this making any sense, or am I have I lost people here? Okay.
This was the very first time that I showed you the size of I was like, hey, this is it. Why is it not firing off? So Damian didn't know how big the videos were that I uploaded.
Yeah.
And so he set the wait state way too aggressively the first time. And then he was like, why is your video 4 gigs, Chris? And I was like, well, it's never not been 4 gigs. He's like, can you make that smaller? So we went back and forth for a couple of days just trying to figure out, can we shrink this until you figured out the wait state solution.
Yeah. So, kind of the bottom line is we don't know, because we're just us. We don't know like the specific values that needs to be set in DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Premiere Pro to get the equivalent video size and quality that you would get if you downloaded a YouTube video. So the easy way to do it was just to download it from YouTube and then say, here it is, and save it from there. Clamio Freedom asked, what is the programming language used? So the Meatgrinder function itself, this one that's doing all the work, is actually running on PowerShell on AWS Lambda. So it's using a PowerShell core, which is a cross-platform version of PowerShell that if you haven't seen PowerShell in 5 or 6 years, it runs on Linux now, and it's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm actually running PowerShell on Amazon Linux. And the reason for that is I know PowerShell, and the original Meatgrinder was written in PowerShell, and I wanted to hit the ground running as quickly as possible and not to have to take time to learn Python, because at the time I didn't know Python. So PowerShell is the majority of it. There is the part here that actually downloads the YouTube video and then uploads it to our public S3 bucket. That is in Python, and that's just a little wrapper script that calls YTDLP, which is very well known, a video downloader that's available on GitHub. And then I have a little choice state here that asks, is it downloaded okay or not? And then if it is, then I call the original Meatgrinder function again, and this finalizes. It actually does a REST API call to our WordPress instance and creates a new post with a link to the YouTube video and all of the description of the video. And then it builds a new RSS XML file and puts that where it needs to go. And then it's over, it's done. And so that is how the step functions workflow operates. So any questions on that?
Do we, and I understand that I'm asking you this first for the live, and there was no prep for this. Do we want to run this on the show? Do we want to do a live demonstration of this? You can totally say no. I realize that this is coming out of left field and that I'm a giant jerk for even asking this late in the game, but I don't have a video ready. So if your answer is no, then I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah. So my answer is no, not because it doesn't work. It's just because we don't have a video queued up. I actually already posted our last week's video has been up. Yep. I use the Meatgrinder for that. And honestly, there's not really a whole lot to see. It's just CloudWatch logs. It's not very exciting. So
Speaking
Conrad,
of-
Conrad asked, instead of the wait times, is using CloudWatch an option to look for completion? No. And the reason for it is Lambda is limited to how long it can run. Its maximum runtime is 15 minutes. And you're billed by the millisecond, based on the configuration of that function. So there's a minimum, which I think is 128 megs of memory and maybe 512 megs of storage, which is like free-ish. But then, at the bigger sizes, it starts to cost money. And of course, the scale, like you have to do it thousands and thousands of times to actually start racking up real money, like US dollars, not even tens of dollars. But I wanted this to run as quickly as it could. And so that's why I put a lot of the orchestration and the waiting into step functions, because that can wait, and that can wait for free versus having Lambda or let's say like an EC2 VM or something just sitting there waiting and doing nothing and costing money.
Nice. So I have been doing a bunch of well-architected reviews, and I'm hearing a lot of checkboxes being checked.
Are you going to ask pillar questions, Shala?
That's the mode I'm in right now. So like, we're watching cost, we're using metrics. I like it.
Yeah. Another thing that was really important to me was idempotency, right? Like I wanted to make sure that I wouldn't process the same video more than once, or that we could process a whole bunch of videos in parallel. And I was able to accomplish this by using the unique key of a YouTube video, right? So like every video that you put up to YouTube, that little V equals gobbledygook thing in the URL, that's the video ID. And that's kind of the unique identifier that I use. Once we have actually uploaded something, then I know, like, okay, this is ABC, as the video ID, and I can find all of the files on S3 according to that. I store a lot of things within a JSON file that lives on S3. So I have kind of a permanent state set with that file on S3 versus these states that pass back and forth within steps of step function. And that allows me to, for example, make sure that I don't do multiple blog posts, that I don't do multiple XML, like RSS things to where you get multiple episodes. And so that was really important to me is, how do I make sure that I'm only doing something one time and that I can pick it up from whatever step that it's failed at and make sure that it completes all the way through. And that was kind of one of the design, like a fundamental piece of the design as I was building this was to be able to handle it that way.
The JSON state file, you said that lives in an S3 bucket. When you're saying state file, are you appending to the end of that state file every new entry? So like I upload a video, you hit the go button. Well, not you hit the go button. It senses that there's a file in there. Are you adding just additional stuff, and is that state file always constantly growing?
Yeah. So what that state file is, after I upload a video to YouTube, so this is the actual code itself that's on our repo. I don't really expect everyone to be able to see this because I know that I'm doing it on a big screen, and unfortunately it is a private repo. But once I actually upload it, so right here is where I build a YouTube service, and then I upload the video. And then after that video is uploaded, I query the YouTube data API for details about that video, and it returns it in JSON format, and I save that in a JSON file. And then I append everything that I need to know about that video to that file. So like the unique post ID of the WordPress posts, or the name of the RSS thumbnail, or the YouTube thumbnail. And that way, at the end, when I'm cleaning up, I can read that JSON file and I can delete everything off of our working S3 bucket. So let's look at these functions. So this is the Meatgrinder function. This is the one that does all the work. This is the one that is written in PowerShell. I actually use the AWS Lambda tools for PowerShell to build the zip file for this. In the configuration, I have all of the environment variables that are sensitive. I have those encrypted through Amazon KMS, and I decrypt those environmental variables as the function is running. So I can do things like show this on a Zoom and not worry about anybody being able to tell me what my
when
client
that showed
ID
up, I
is for
freaked out.
Google
I was like,
OAuth.
"Oh, do I need to res that out?"
Hey, I was like, wait a minute.
I know what I'm doing.
Almost
So, yeah.
sometimes.
Yes. And I actually have a little PowerShell function that I call on my script that goes through and decrypts it, right? So there's a little decrypt script, which is the PowerShell equivalent. If you've ever gone into Lambda environment variables and you hit the encrypt button there and you can choose your actual KMS key, it will show you like C# or Python code or whatever for how to decrypt that. And so this is just the PowerShell equivalent of the C# that would do that. Yes, I know what I'm doing are famous last words that I know I've said more than one time. So yeah, this whole function does the stuff, and it's step functions itself that will go in and increase and decrease the memory and the storage as needed, depending on if it needs to upload or download. So that's the primary one. That one's written in PowerShell. The secondary one is the wrapper for YT DLP. I did that because it's running on Amazon Linux, so I couldn't use an executable like a Windows executable build of YT DLP, and it already exists. And so the easiest thing that I knew at the time, not knowing Python then, was, hey, I can just build another function and it will just do everything for me.
And this is specifically just for downloading the compressed version after we've uploaded it, right?
Yes. Yeah. So this, you can actually see the function code on Lambda's console. You can see where I am actually, again, going into the environment variables, and I'm pulling out the access token and the refresh token that I've already established in advance that allows me to authenticate using OAuth 2 to YouTube. if you've tried to download anything on, from a VM on AWS, you may have found YouTube blocking that. Authenticating with OAuth 2 helps get past the kind of blockers that YouTube has put in to make sure that you're being a good internet person. So I actually build a token file on the fly and then save that out to the file system that my downloader then goes and looks at and downloads. And then when it's done, it either tells me that something went terribly wrong, which step functions interprets, or it tells me that it's okay. Thanks, Conrad.
Conrad has to drop. He
yeah.
said, I've only heard him curse once so far.
I think it was an allowed one. I think that's
I
something
didn't
you
even
can
catch
say.
it.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
neither. I missed it.
It was probably the HELL word or something.
Oh boy.
Okay.
HE double hockey sticks. Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh,
I'm so
we've done
Midwestern.
it now. Yeah. So this is actually a set config, right? Because I already know that anything that I'm getting from YouTube is probably not going to be bigger than 2 gigs. It's probably only going to need 1 gig of memory. And really, it only takes 30 seconds for it to download. And so everything goes to
Crazy.
CloudWatch, which is really handy. I can actually go over to CloudWatch and I've got different log groups built for each one. And I can look at the log file for when it ran last, and you will see, so this is the log file for the YouTube downloader. This is the latest run, and you can actually see kind of an example of an error, like it actually didn't go well. This was a test that I had run because I wanted to make sure that the JSON that I was sending back was something that step functions could interpret. So I intentionally gave it a bad YouTube ID to test my error raising and catching functionality. Here, so if Lambda is running warm, which means it's run before and it's still kind of staged and it can run again, it'll just append into the same log bundle. On cold starts, it actually takes it a little bit longer to start up, but it starts a new log group every time. So this is an example of a successful run where you can see it very verbosely logging at every place as it's downloading a video. And so that's what it does. It goes through, it downloads the video and the audio. It uses FFmpeg to marry the two together and to create an MP4. And then it pushes it up to our public S3 bucket for the RSS feed.
Nice. This is a nice, happy log. I'm not seeing a lot of noise in it, so it makes me happy.
Yeah, there's no noise. There really
I
isn't.
love that. I love that. I deal with noise every day.
So I wonder if this is a good log. Yeah, so here is a log of when I uploaded Rion's video from last week, and this is the kind of finishing the work part of Meatgrinding. It's a commandlet called complete-meatgrinding, and what that does is it checks for a JSON in our private bucket. It calls another commandlet to create a new vBrownBag post. It identifies the square thumbnail that we're going to read. It uploads everything. It posts it. We get a good response back from vBrownBag.com. And then because we know that the video is public, we're assuming that we can also go ahead and update the RSS, the XML file. And so it'll go through and it'll check to see if that unique video ID exists. It'll remove anything that's over 2 years old. And so you can see it's actually everything I wish I knew about AWS certification with Andrew Brown. Sorry, Andrew.
Oh no.
It aged out because we don't need more than 2 years worth of stuff on an RSS feed. The file still lives on YouTube. It's still on vBrownBag.com. It's not on the RSS feed.
Yeah,
and then it actually, and then it updates the XML file. It pushes it using SFTP over to our server that hosts it, and then it happily exits. So this is an example of Meatgrinder operating normally and doing what it should.
You know what else I'm liking? I see tags. It says information. So
It's almost like
that makes me happy.
Well, that's just the log level.
I know, but
Yeah.
I deal with logs that doesn't have that.
yeah. So with PowerShell, if you're familiar with PowerShell, the write-host commandlet that you would use to write to a screen that actually writes to the log. And so it's very easy to write debug messages with PowerShell and Lambda just by writing whatever you want with write-host.
Nice.
I am going to take a quick look here. I think I covered a lot of things. Yeah, so probably the two biggest things that I struggled with in terms of technical challenges was the OAuth side of things. Mm-hmm. Being able to actually authenticate to the YouTube API as the account that is able to manage the vBrownBag channel and then to save those credentials in a reusable way. That took a little bit of work, but I'm really happy with the way that I was able to resolve that. I did that partially through the use of another public set of commandlets that I took from, I forget what it's called. I'll provide it in the show notes. There's an actual GitHub repo where a guy wrote how to handle all these OAuth 2 functions with PowerShell. And I use this OAuth 2 token endpoint to refresh my access token. And that's really kind of the key that I need to be able to authenticate to that API on demand. So if you've ever gone through Google, like let's say you go to canva.com and you're like, sign in with Google, and then it does little thing, here's your Google person. Do you want to sign into this thing? This is the permissions that they're asking for, allow, deny, right? And then once you accept all of that, that's an OAuth 2 interaction, and that is stored somewhere. And so capturing those important pieces and then encrypting them with KMS and then decrypting them on the fly was kind of a key technical challenge, because I wanted to make sure that everything was secure, and if people needed to interact with the Meatgrinder, they wouldn't be able to look at unencrypted environment variables. Like if you have the AWS command line, you can actually examine Lambda functions and the config by default, unless you have that locked out. But I wanted to make this as easy to use and very simple to configure, and not really have a lot of worries about the security side of things, because I already addressed those issues up front.
Was this in React, or was that particular design decision made in reaction to our hack when our YouTube channel got compromised? And because that was because of leaked keys, right? Were the leaked keys in the original repo, or?
No, that actually wasn't due to leaked keys at all. That was a person that we had set as a brand manager on YouTube. Their account was set as a brand manager, and they got phished. So they went through an OAuth interaction that was a fake one, and then whatever automation took over our channel and called it a Tesla spam channel or whatever the heck it was. So yeah,
gotcha.
that had nothing to do with leaked keys. That was just an everyday phishing attempt that happened to hit an account that actually had permissions. Yeah. That was fun.
That was a fun 3 days.
I had such a panic attack from that.
Right?
It's so wonderful.
Only 13 years of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes, yeah. So, I would say the bottom line with this is we're able to solve a real world problem that we needed, and we were able to do it with AWS in a way that makes sense. It's easy to understand. It's easy to maintain. The actual Meatgrinder itself, when it's operating, when it's not waiting, when it's actually doing things, probably takes a minute and a half to upload and then to download and then to do all the REST API calls. About a minute and a half, right? Like that's not very long at all. The overall process with all the waits could take hours, but I just think there's something so cool in having kind of an event-driven architecture where you can have things happen on demand, and it only exists within that space that work needs to be done. So I've really enjoyed this quite a bit.
Yeah, very, very slick. And you're
Yeah.
giving me projects in my mind to go work on. That's what you're doing.
I don't
So
need any more projects.
no more projects, Roger says.
I mean, I have a bunch of questions, but absolutely none of them can be answered on air because what I want to do is I want to, like, you know, now that you've got it nailed down. Oh, Rian has a question.
Yeah, Rian, you want to know if I use the WordPress CLI? Actually, I don't. Interacting with WordPress, you can use the CLI. You can do like an email thing where you kind of send an email to your WordPress instance, and it works off of kind of keywords in the email. I didn't like that. It wasn't very customizable. I'm actually directly addressing the not YouTube, sorry. I just saw the word YouTube, so of course my mouth said it. I'm addressing WordPress's REST API directly. And so I'm going to scroll down to right here. So this is my new VB post commandlet. And I'm going to do a little bit of
Look
that.
at you with the zoom in. Nice.
Oh yeah, Control plus. Yeah. So it's not wrapping here, but you can actually see where I am checking to see if a thumbnail exists. I'm creating a credential. I'm building out what that post will look like. And then I actually am doing this invoke web request. It's kind of funny with the WordPress API. If you're doing featured media with that post, you can't do them at the same time. So I actually am doing them separately. So I have to make multiple REST API calls where I create the post and I create the featured media, and then I do another call that marries the two of those together. And so yeah, all of that's through REST. All of that's very handy. And you can see here where I'm actually building out the headers for that post JSON that invoke web request uses to create that new WordPress blog post. So there you go, Rian, a very detailed answer. What was your question, Chris? I thought you were saying something.
Oh, no. So my next step in this, once we're off the air, is sitting down with you, putting the files into the bucket, and then basically me watching. Basically, I want to break this and how, and then, you know, set me loose on this so I can figure out how to fix the different things, so that the proverbial bus does not hit you and we are left high and dry. Want to make sure that, you know, all of this functionality is fixable by any one of us. So enhance the documentation, enhance the README, do all those things.
Oh yeah. So
that'll be super fun.
Yeah. So this is totally not for the sake of this video, but I actually went through and I updated all the manual steps and what it can and can't do and how to build out the things and all the software that's needed to build it all out, right? Like I've done quite a bit of documentation on this.
Bless your heart.
So YouTube API, some things that it can't do. You can't monetize a video through the API. You can't attest whether or not a video contains AI content in the API. So at least not in version 3 of the API. If you're listening to this when there's a better version out there, then enjoy that one. So yeah, we have to kind of go through manually after we've uploaded a video. We've got to remember to go into the YouTube studio and turn monetization on, or otherwise we don't get the little bit of money that we get with YouTube ads.
The $10 to pay for the Lambda function.
Yes. We don't get enough money to pay for AWS to keep doing this. So yeah. Anyways, I just thought I would share that. It was something that came to mind about what the YouTube API can't do. So any other questions from the audience? Anybody else?
I think, yeah, this is one of those projects that makes me happy though. This is like a happy project. I like these.
What do you mean by happy?
Because it's the stuff that, like you said, you're solving a real world problem and you're getting to like hit these different roadblocks and then figure it out. And for me, that's what makes me happy. That's what I'm all about.
That makes sense. Yeah, this was a tremendous learning experience. I never logged in. Well, not never. I hadn't logged into AWS in years
Even better.
before doing this, right?
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, and in fact, I burned my AWS credentials years ago.
What do you mean?
So
Like physically burned?
No.
Okay.
So I have a Gmail account that I use for a lot of things, and that Gmail account was the one that I used to log into AWS. If you delete your AWS account, you can never get it back. Like it's done. It's gone.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
I didn't know that.
Gotcha.
Wow.
yeah, that's what I mean by burned. So any ideas to improve the process or expand functionality? You know, honestly, a lot of the process improvement that we've thought about is just how to better distribute the content that we create here on the vBrownBag into more viral things, or to put it into other places. You know, there's always a platform with a new short video format, right? Like LinkedIn has started doing it, for better or worse. That may bring about, you know, the next world war. We don't know, but that's where a lot of our thoughts are. So a lot of our thought process is probably more in the production side of things than in the post-production. But I would say that this could easily be extended to posting to other platforms as well, providing those platforms had a reasonable API to work with, right? Like, I don't know what sort of an API LinkedIn has with creating content. I've read a lot of the LinkedIn API, and most of it is kind of around monetization rather than getting super useful information out of the API, which is a digression. But this can easily be added to another platform's REST API. I could very easily post it somewhere else. Yeah, like YouTube clips, right? I can also upload shorts. Shorts is another thing that the YouTube Data API handles. I could easily just do that. So
Nice.
I have done a lot of talking. I've gotten my words today. I think I closed
your
my
words out.
Yeah. I closed my words ring on my watch.
Well, I definitely want to. We should actually come full circle and use this episode as the next phase of it. Like go through. Like I said, let's sit together and edit the video together so I can show you Premiere Pro, and then we can flip it and then upload the video and then bring up the console. And I wish we could record that. Well, we can't because that's a lot of internal information too. Okay.
Well, we could show a little bit of it. We could show it processing video, and maybe even put in some fun music to make it seem exciting, and totally not at all JSON going to a CloudWatch.
We should use the Keystone Cops theme song. Yeah, never mind.
Yes.
The Benny Hill theme song, Yakety Sax. That's perfect.
All right, so any ideas on how AI ML could be integrated? That's a good question. Yeah, that's what was making me happy about the project, because I would go off air and do a bunch of brainstorming to figure that kind of thing out. But yeah, let me get back to you on that, because that's where I start spiraling and go down the rabbit hole. Because I actually did some of that kind of stuff for work very recently, and it turned out beautiful.
Oh yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
that's got a good ending to it. It turned out well.
Yeah.
Speaking of good endings, I was just doing the drawing off to the side because I wanted to make sure that we got the drawing done before everybody bailed. And the winner is Rian from last week. So Rian, congratulations. You have won once again the $50 AWS gift certificate. So I will be sending that to you in the HashiCorp Ambassador private Slack, since we both chat there. So yay, team.
Good job.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are at time, folks. So let us wrap this up. Damian, thank you so. This is weird because you're always a host, and you being in the presenter seat. Thank you for coming on the show, Damian. I'll see you again next week.
Actually, it's great experience because now I know what our next presenter is going to have to deal with in terms of navigating StreamYard. So that's always a helpful thing. So thanks for allowing us to have our vBrownBag company meeting live on the air.
Pretty much.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.
Have a good night.